We're on the last few lessons of the new specification for the GCSE course. Don't lose out on these valuable lessons because they're at the end of the course, and examiners know it's at the end of the course. Everyone's busy, everyone's rushed, everyone's had enough, and a question could easily come up. Let's start with choosing which is the best definition for the term food security. That's right, food security is about having enough food to feed the population. And simply growing enough food in the world isn't enough. People need to have access to either grow it or buy it themselves. It's also about having a balanced diet, having a healthy diet, because you can eat a lot of food, but you might still have malnutrition, bad nutrition. You might still be lacking vitamins and minerals from your diet because you're eating a lot of processed food. And this is really evident in some countries. For example, I used to work and live in Thailand. When I worked there, I noticed that the children who ate a Thai diet that was home-cooked food or street market food, but it was fresh and it was made from real ingredients, very little processed food, they looked like healthy children of a healthy weight. However, the children that had gone to McDonald's, had gone to KFC and had eaten a largely Western diet, they were the ones that were really rather overweight. And Thailand isn't a country that suffers a huge obesity problem, but as the availability of food from the West, processed food, increased, their obesity problem has also increased. So it's important that we get the right food. What are the factors that stand in our way as a human population across the world from having access to healthy food? So stop the video and write down the definition for food security. And the definition for food security is having access to enough healthy food to feed the population. Okay, so now we're looking at those factors, 6 factors that might affect food security. We're going to write them down, and they are a massive increase in the birth rate. Now, while in many Western countries the birth rate has stabilised or even decreased, in many developing countries it continues to rise. We know that some of the reasons for the continued rise of birth rate in these developing countries is due to the fact that some babies die in the first 2 years of childhood. We also know that it's cultural. Big families are seen as more respected, and also some religions don't allow contraception. And so these are the reasons why birth rate continues to rise in those countries. We also have the problem that in developed countries, we can afford to bring scarce or food from distant parts of the world to us at great cost because we want to eat that type of food.
Transporting food halfway around the world to people who already have enough to eat has knock-on effects. As I mentioned in Thailand, people who replace their traditional diet with food that's seen as modern, such as pasta and chips, may then lack nutritional balance. Growing cash crops can prevent people from growing their own traditional food, which in turn drives up prices. New pests and pathogens are our next factor that we're looking at in terms of affecting food security. Global travel and the movement of seeds and animals from one part of the world to another, coupled with climate change, have led to a massive increase in new pests and pathogens spreading from one place to another. Climate change has led to the world warming up. This has led to crop pests from tropical regions moving towards the poles at a rate of about 2.7 kilometres a year. Fourth factor affecting food security are the environmental changes themselves. This could be desertification, it could be flooding or drought, both of which can lead to food insecurity. A lack of food for livestock and humans mean that animals and humans starve, and death can be the result. Millions can suffer for many years.
We've got the cost of agricultural inputs.
What is meant by the cost of agricultural inputs? Well, scientists in the developed world can now produce crops that are genetically engineered to withstand droughts or floods, or to produce a very high yield. You learned about this when you learned about genetic modification. The problem with this is that it has increased the cost of the seed. Remember that we learned that with genetic modification, the crops that are grown are largely infertile, and this produces a reliance on the farmers to the scientists to keep buying the seed year after year. Agricultural inputs can also be described as irrigation systems, fertilisers and pesticides that can all be used to increase yields. But of course, all of them still cost money. And so although they increase yields, rather than increasing food security, they reduce food security.
And we've got conflict resulting around money due to political power struggles.
So conflicts usually arise as a result of power struggles, often fueled by religious or racial tensions. So concerns over food security, including access to food and water, can add to the mix. Infrastructure such as water pipes is often destroyed, and conflict almost always leads to food insecurity.
So what is a sustainable solution?
We need to make sure we can continue to feed a growing population for many years. We need to find a way of maintaining soil quality so plants can be grown year after year in the same field. We need to look at ways of growing food more efficiently, perhaps using hydroponics. We need to apply fishing quotas and look after our fish stocks in our oceans to make sure that they don't run out. And they are our 6 factors that can affect food security: an increase in birth rate, changing diets, new pests and pathogens, environmental changes, the cost of agricultural inputs and conflict.
And to bring it all together, let's just match these definitions.